Good day, everybody. This video is going to be going through resistance to social influence. All right. So hopefully you. What the bloody hell was that? No. Hopefully you have looked at why we obey, looked at why we conform. Now is why you do not conform and why you do not obey. In my classes, there are always disobedient little shits, basically, that that disobey. Right? I tell them to do something and they don't do it. So we've looked at why these people do obey. Now we need to look at why people resist that social influence. Quite an easy bullet point, this. Quite an easy one in my humble opinion. Oh, no, don't want to play. And so we're looking at past examples. We're looking at two theories in this case. But let's go into what resistance to social influence actually means. It is the ability to withstand the social pressure. And you need quite a strong personality and maybe some particular situations in order to do this. And as I said, it is influenced by the environment and it's influenced by dispositional factors like personality traits such as the locus of control. You do need to know real world events here, right? The examiner doesn't think you know the world, as in, you know, topical events that happen, historical events that happen, things that are happening right now. The examiner thinks you live in your own little teenage self-indulgent bubble. So you need to think of actual examples to use here. You need to think of Martin Luther King's civil rights movement and how Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, among others, resisted social influence. They went against authority and they've actually changed society as a result. So, one of the theories we look at is social support. And this is a situational explanation. The other one we look at is the locus of control, and this is a dispositional explanation. You need to both know, apply, and evaluate all of these theories. So let's start with social support, which is the situational explanation. Now, on your screen is Rosa Parks, obviously the one on the right. And we all know Rosa Parks as one of the first examples, or arguably the woman who triggered the mass movement for civil rights in America in the 1950s. There were people before her, absolutely, but we need to look at Rosa Parks as an example. Social support is quite an obvious idea. It is we resist social influence because we see other people do it before us. So the presence of other people who resist pressures to conform or obey can help us to do the same. And these people, and this is a key term here, these people are called dissenters. You need to be able to call these people what they are. Disobedient role models, dissenters, disobedient allies, for example. These people act as models to show us how to resist social influence. So a classic example is if I were to say to you, right, all stand on your chairs, and you don't want to stand on your chair, for example, but you see everybody else is climbing up onto their chairs. But across the room, you see somebody else sitting there refusing to stand on their chair. That person will act as a confidence grower. That person will act as a role model, and they will give you the confidence to also disobey as well. So real life example is one. You do need real life example is that chair one I gave you, but you do need other real life examples. And the classic one is this idea about how non-Jewish families, German families, did help and protect some Jewish people from being put into the ghettos, into the Jewish concentration, or the Jewish ghettos, and then they were shipped off to concentration camps. A lot of German families risked their entire lives to disobey the Nazi regime, and they protected a lot of Jewish families. Sorry, non-Jewish people did this, and they protected a lot of Jewish families. So that's a good example. Linking to linking to that, you also need to know the Rosenstrauss protests, which come on later. So Rosenstrauss is a fantastic example. 1943, I believe it happened. It was the only case where Jewish people resisted German authority and actually gained a victory out of it. So it's the Rosenstrauss protests, based on where it happened in, I think it was Berlin. So I think Rosenstrauss might be here. There you go. A good example is that of the Rosenstrauss protest, where non-Jewish wives staged a protest for their Jewish husbands and actually got their Jewish husbands released back into the public. This is the only case where Germans actually capitulated and actually released Jewish men in this case. So there is a link to that in my slides. If you're not one of my students, for example, you may find my slides on the resource site, and therefore you'd have that link. But Rosenstrauss is definitely a good AO2 here. So let's go into a bit more detail, because you need to know more than you see somebody else do it. So a good term for social support is referred to as defiance. You are defying the obedience, you're defying the authority, you're defying your peers, for example, and you're doing that because you see a disobedient role model commit the behavior beforehand. That's a relatively simple concept to get, I think. And Rosa Parks is a good example. Martin Luther King is a good example. The Rosenstrauss protests are good examples. If you are a non-Jewish wife and your husband's been shipped off to Auschwitz, for example, and you obviously want to protest, of course you want to protest. Of course you're not going to be happy with that. And you see your friend Margareta, I don't know, you see your friend, isn't that pizza? Whatever. You see your friend Delilah start protesting against these German Nazi guards. You think, hold on, if she can do it, hold on a second, lads. If she can do it, I can do it too. So social support breeds confidence to disobey. Couple of bits that came from a mark scheme here. So I'm just going to bring this down a little bit. So it's about having disobedient role models, having an ally. Look, that's actually quite a good differentiation. So if you are resisting obedience, then it's a disobedient role model that you're after. Okay. If you're resisting conformity, and there's a difference, it's a case of you having an ally. So they're two different terms to use in two different situations. Now, why is this important, right? And this is the deeper part of the theory. The reason why social support is so important is because it breaks the unanimity of the group. If everybody in the room agrees to do homework apart from one person, that breaks the unanimity of the group. A consequence of that, and this is how you have to phrase this, by the way, a consequence of the unanimity being broken is that it challenges the legitimacy of the authority. Let me give you an example. I set you all homework, but one person says, I'm not going to do that, Kieran, because I do not believe it's worth my time. Now, all of a sudden, that one person who's going against the group is challenging my authority in this case. Now, they are challenging the legitimacy of my authority. And if I am weak authority, I will give in and be like, oh, okay, Barbara, where am I getting these names from today? Okay, Barbara, you don't have to do the work. That's weak authority. So social support challenges the legitimacy of authority. A good little term that actually it's called a divergence of opinion, right? Someone's going in a different direction. They're diverting, right? They're divergence of opinion. Okay, fine. That's pretty simple. So you do need some research support here, and I believe this is actually in the workbook for you to fill in. Ash did provide evidence of this. That photo is from Ash. That is the actual participant. Look how befuddled he is. So Ash found examples of social support, and because it's conformity, the presence of an ally in the group who correctly who correctly stated the correct line, that led to a decrease. Conformity, when you have an ally, when you have someone who's on your team, conformity drops down from about 32% down to 5%. So clearly it is a factor here. That is good evidence that actually social support does play a role. And you've also got Milgram's study here as well. And I love this one as well. If you have a look just up here, in one of Milgram's variations, the real participant was paired with two Confederates who also played the roles as the shocker. At some point, the two additional Confederates, remember, who are in on the study, but they appear to be genuine participants, they refuse to go on. They refuse to go on. And obedient drops from 65% down to just 10%. So one thing to note, this down here is not zero. So therefore, social support is not the whole explanation. But it is a big drop, and therefore it needs to be considered as a valid explanation. Quite important to know. So strengths of social support is it's backed up by real world examples and research evidence as well. But here's a pretty critical weakness of social support. It fails to explain the first dissenter. It fails to explain why the first person to disobey did disobey. Give me a second. Sorry about that. Someone came in midway through me talking. So what I was saying, I think, was it fails to explain the first dissenter. So, for example, Rosa Parks didn't see anybody else refuse to get off the bus. Martin Luther King didn't see anybody else do the Selma marches, for example. These are the first people. So what you could say here is social support explains the second dissenter, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, the eighth, the ninth, the 10th, but it doesn't explain why the obedience occurred in the first place. Bloody no, this room's hot. Anyway, here is a model point of that point. So let me just... So you've got your point to begin with, and your point in this case is that it doesn't explain the first dissenter. Fine. Social support fails to explain the actions of the first dissenter. Now I need to give evidence for this case. For example, whilst the explanation adequately explains the actions of those who copied Rosa Parks, it does not explain Rosa Parks' actions itself. Rosa did not see anybody else disobey, so she had no disobedient role model. And then you have to go into why this is a good or bad thing. Right? Why is it bad that this theory doesn't explain Rosa Parks? This failure to explain the first dissenter means that the theory fails to explain why obedience actually occurred, suggesting it has a lowered explanatory power. Good term to use. But that's not enough. I need a little bit more. It merely explains why the obedience continues, meaning that the explanation of support may lack validity, it may lack accuracy. Therefore, the theory may only be used as a partial explanation and only in why obedience continues. Fine. Let's move on to the next explanation here. And in this case, we are now looking at something to do with the person. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that social support, that one we've just looked at, social support only explains, it doesn't explain why people in the same situation don't obey. It doesn't explain, sorry, I'm just opening the window because it's so bloody warm in here. It doesn't explain why some people disobey in the same situation, whereas this one does. Right, so this is about locus of control. Now, one thing that research commonly shows, by the way, the thing that makes us most happy in life is a sense of control over our life. Most students who have a breakdown to me or any teachers, if you take a step back from what they're actually saying is, they're saying through their tears, I feel like I do not have control over my life right now. And that is basically, you could argue, the basis of any and all mental health, is that I feel like I do not have control over my life. So what we're going to be looking at here is what's called locus of control. This is a personality trait, note that down. It's a personality trait that is basically the extent to which you believe you have control over your life. Some of you believe you have great control over your life. You can control your grades, you can control your future, you can control your intelligence, you can control how many friends you have, you can control how good those friends are. Some of you don't believe you have that much control over your life at all. And you believe in things like fate and horoscopes and soulmates, and there's nothing you can do about this, and sorry, I can't hide it. So those with an internal okay, and this is the bit that people get confused about. Those with a high internal locus of control, they believe they have control over their life, including, and here's the key bit, including their ability to say no to authority or conformity or peers, right? They believe that they can resist social influence because they believe they have control over their situation. So I have a high internal. I've done the test. I have got a high internal locus of control. I believe that a lot of things are in my control. I believe your grades are in like under my control at least a little bit, right? So I believe I have good control over that. Not full control, but a lot of control. If my boss tells me to do something that I don't agree with, and this is the case for anyone with a high locus of control, I feel like I would have the ability to say, no, I'm not going to do that, right? And not just sheepishly go along with it, even though I disagree with it. Those with an external locus of control believe, oh, bloody hell, sorry, I've just kicked a chair. They believe that their control is external to them. It's in the environment, that they have no control over the external environment. Their loci, which stands for locus, location, by the way, their location of their control, they believe, is actually outside of them rather than inside of them. So people with a high external locus of control believe that it's luck, fate, soulmates, and all that rubbish. So you're going to be somewhere in between here. And in class, we are probably going to do a test on this. We're definitely going to do a test on this. So the theory suggests that everybody is somewhere on this spectrum. And if you're up here in a high internal locus of control, you're going to be able to resist social influence a lot more. Okay, fine. But here's the key point. When people outline this theory, all they do is they just talk about internal locus of control. But you have to, that was too aggressive, sorry. You have to link how high internal locus of control actually links to the ability to resist. So you have to talk about confidence, for example, how people feel confident in their decision making. People feel confident that they have control over their lives. So Rotter, who is behind this whole thing, suggested that having a high locus of control makes people more resistant to social pressure, as they believe they are in control of their situation and their entire life, and they're more likely to be self-confident and perceive themselves as having a free choice to conform or obey or not. That's pretty much it. There's not a lot to this theory, right? So in this case, this does actually explain the first dissenter. Martin Luther King said no to authority. Rosa Parks said no to the bus driver, who in this case is an authority, because they believed they had control over their ability to say no, right? So it explains the first dissenter. If I give out homework and, one person raises their hand and says, I don't want to do it, that person believes they have control over their ability to resist, and they're not just leaving it up to fate, right? So it does explain individual differences as well. Some people in Milgram disobeyed because they had an internal locus of control. The people who went to 450, they had an external locus of control. However, it is a little bit socially sensitive. And again, what I mean by that is it has the potential to be a little bit offensive, because it says that if you have an external locus of control, and I can make you do the test, and I will make you do the test, if you have an external loci of control, you basically have no choice in whether you obey. You have no free will in whether you obey. And why is that offensive? Because people do not like to be told that they have no free will in something. Why would you like that, by the way? Why would you like that? We like to think that we have choice. The only other issue as well is the theory neglects to actually state whether individuals can change their loci of control. So I don't think I've always been I don't think I've always been high internal locus of control. I think when I was your age, I think I was really external. The theory doesn't explain if you can change, how you can change, and the processes and mechanisms by which you would change. So the theory is quite low in explanatory power. Another model peel, this is a strength though in this case, it does take into account individual differences. For example, Milgram's experiment, some obeyed to 450, whereas some people disobeyed, yet it was the same situation. So obedience cannot be caused by the same situation, because if you're in the same situation, you've got some people obeying, some people disobeying. Clearly, there's something about their personality that's making them disobey. Therefore, it lacks explanatory power. There are other explanations that are better, and therefore, blah, blah, blah. Right, I think I've butchered that a little bit. This is an essay question for you to start thinking about. I probably am going to set this for you at some point. You need to figure out which one is social support, which one is locus of control. But that, in a nutshell, is pretty much all you need to know. Now, in the workbooks, I know there are some a lot of spaces for you to fill out, a lot of examples, basically. But just pick a couple: civil rights, Rosenstrauss protests, any. I don't know, women's rights. Women's rights, for example. We know a lot of cases about people who resist. Emily Davison, for example, a lot of the suffragists, although suffragists weren't actually effective compared to the suffragettes, but maybe know both. But that's pretty much it. I hope that was useful. Peace out.